Missed by 8 inches, authored by Lionel de Souza. This is one such tale, a saga of two friends from a remote Indian town, whose journey takes them far beyond the familiar, into the very heart of a war zone, managing the facilities of the U.S. Army in war zones. The narrative centers around the tragic demise of one friend, with the other wrongfully accused of leading him into the war zone, resulting in his untimely death and being unjustly labeled. This is not just a story of loss and accusation, but a testament to the unyielding strength of friendship. It is about the kind of bond that endures the harshest of realities, supports and uplifts even in the face of adversity. This tale is a tribute to the moments of solidarity, the laughter shared in brief respites from danger, and the memories that become lifelines in the darkest of times. It is dedicated to all those who work in war zones without any weapons to defend themselves, to the army contractors who sacrifice their lives to the tough jobs at the war base, holding their hearts on a thread. It is for those unsung warriors, whose stories of valor and sacrifice often go untold. In the pages that follow, you will journey with these two friends through the trials and tribulations of war, witness the strength of their bond, and feel the weight of their sacrifices. This is their story, a story of friendship, courage, and the indomitable human spirit. Please watch the previous chapters to help better understand Chapter 5. A brief recap of Chapter 1 cricket match introduces the narrator and his 6 Indian colleagues working in Saudi Arabia. A cricket match in no man's land sets the tone for camaraderie, cultural clashes, and the narrator's bond with childhood friend Andrew. A brief recap of Chapter 2 First Time, Pact Broken. A flashback to school days in India. The narrator and Andrew plan a prank that goes wrong. Andrew breaks their pact, foreshadowing future betrayals and the complexity of their friendship. A brief recap of Chapter 3 Entry to Saudi Arabia. The narrator's chaotic first entry into Saudi Arabia, including a customs ordeal involving religious items and pork. He's helped by a kind customs officer, Mark G., highlighting themes of fear, faith, and unexpected kindness. A brief recap of Chapter 4 Second Time, Pact Broken. The narrator helps Andrew get a job in Saudi Arabia, again risking his own finances. A flashback to a prank gone wrong shows Andrew abandoning him, reinforcing the recurring theme of broken trust. A brief recap of Chapter 5 Brothers in Arms. A tense encounter with a Saudi Mutawa priest turns into a moment of unexpected hospitality. The narrator and his friends are treated as brothers, challenging stereotypes and deepening the theme of cross-cultural respect. We are now moving to Chapter 6, titled New Direction to Life from Missed by 8 Inches, authored by Lionel de Souza. Cricket served as our sole form of recreation and provided a delightful diversion, as it allowed us to interact with others, particularly the team from Kuwait. Neil stood out as the most vivacious member of the team. Fridays were always filled with anticipation. We would head to the border, engage in cricket, and savor some delectable food that was a welcome change from the usual mess hall offerings. My tenure in Saudi had surpassed 18 months, during which I had the opportunity to visit my family back in India once. Gradually, I found myself growing fond of the country, the work, and the people I was surrounded by. Uncle Hillary, in particular, had become a close confidant, relying on me for virtually everything. I had essentially become his right-hand person, privy to every secret he held, also managing his personal accounts. In October 1999, on a post-cricket Friday, Neil pulled me aside with a proposition. His company in Kuwait had openings, and he was curious if I would consider joining him there. At the time, Kuwait was under the strain of Saddam Hussein's regime. Neil outlined the role, facilities management and general upkeep, and quoted a salary that was double what I was earning in Saudi. He asked for my decision by the following Friday. The decision required swift contemplation. The very next day, I consulted my father, who, somewhat indifferent due to his own frustrations, advised me to follow my judgment. The more challenging conversation was with Uncle Hillary. After a lengthy 3-hour discussion probing the who, what, where, and when, he gave his consent. The prospective employer was a US-based facility management company, notable for its support of defense forces in war zones, specifically aiding the Australian Defence Force during the Kuwait conflict. I informed Neil of the affirmative responses from all parties involved, and he detailed the next steps. He would provide a Kuwait visa, I would need to cancel my Saudi visa, and then make my way from the Saudi border to the Kuwait border to meet him. In November, during one of our matches, Neil handed me a green paper, my visa, along with 4 white papers detailing the job offer. The transition was set for December 28, 1999. Back at the camp, Uncle Hillary reviewed the offer letter and visa, which bore a priority a stamp indicating its significance as the visa was issued on defense support personnel quota. I submitted my resignation, with December 27th marked as my last working day. Uncle Hillary even organized a party on December 26th to celebrate both Christmas and my farewell. On the morning of December 28, 1999, I got dressed, surrounded by roommates who had come to see me off. Andrew was the only one with tears in his eyes, and I reassured him with a promise to bring him along with me in the future. Since my exit was already stamped, there was no need for paperwork at the office. I proceeded to the border, presented my passport, received my exit stamp, and walked towards the Kuwait border. There, I saw 3 Army GMC trucks parked on the other side. As I entered the Kuwait border, I handed over my visa and passport to an official who inquired if I was the individual joining the ADF from across the border. After confirming, he took all my documents and disappeared into several glass chambers. 15 minutes later, he emerged and informed me that we were ready to proceed. Neil was waiting for me as I exited immigration. He shook my hand, welcomed me to Kuwait, and jokingly remarked, "Welcome to the war zone," marking the start of my new life in a war-torn region. The 3 Army trucks stationed at the border, which I initially thought were a grand gesture for my arrival, were actually part of Neil's convoy, there to transport me from the border. For a moment, I felt like a person of great importance, receiving an army escort. However, as we moved forward, I realized that the trucks were a standard safety measure in the war zone, a sobering reminder of the significant risks present. The job offer had mentioned a $1 million compensation in case of a fatal incident during my tenure with the company, and it was at this moment that the gravity of that sum truly dawned on me. After a 2-hour drive to the base camp, the journey was mostly silent as Neil fell asleep shortly after we departed. The views of Kuwait were obscured by tarpaulin curtains hanging beside the truck windows, a safety measure to prevent outsiders from seeing inside. This precaution was a stark reminder of the heightened security required in the war zone. At one point I could see large fence through the tarpaulin and huge secured gates. Upon reaching the gates, an extensive procedure for my intake, onboarding, and safety briefing was carried out. I received an identity card labeled Facilities in Charge, which had white letters on a red background. After the card was issued, I was instructed to enter the camp. The camp extended over roughly 25 acres of desert, filled with uniformed personnel. The accommodations included temporary trailers scattered across the dusty land, tents situated in the center, and a runway with a control tower at the edge of the camp. Large fences topped with barbed wire and many metal guard posts where soldiers stood watch surrounded the entire area. The reality of my new surroundings began to settle in. Neil, still drowsy, instructed one of his team members to escort me to my barack and show me where I would be sleeping. I was led to a trailer house with a small sitting area furnished with 2 sofas, their original dark maroon color faded to gray by the dust. A narrow corridor led to a room with 4 bunk beds, where I was directed to store my belongings in a locker and assigned the 3rd upper bunk. Transitioning from a private room in Saudi to a shared space with 4 bunk beds, and being assigned to the top bunk, certainly brought a mix of emotions and a sense of apprehension. Despite this, I was instructed to use the communal bathroom at the end of the passage to freshen up before heading to the mess. The absence of a geyser meant enduring the cold water, but a kit waiting on my bed provided some comforts. For toothbrushes, a tube of toothpaste, a razor, shaving foam, 3 bars of soap, and 2 bottles of drinking water. Alone in the barack, I quickly bathed and then made my way to the door. Upon reaching the door, I was greeted by a middle-aged man with fair skin, of short and stout stature. He inquired if I was the new arrival, to which I confirmed with a nod and an affirmative. His British accent was distinct as he introduced himself as Richard, who reported to Neil. He expressed a desire to spend some time with me to gauge my capabilities. I obliged and followed him, treading through the sand as he led the way. He began to speak. Please be aware that we are operating in a high-risk area, and it's crucial to stay within the designated boundaries to maintain insurance coverage, unless you have explicit authorization to leave. Our operations are around the clock, supporting the Australian Defence Force to ensure their comfort during their stay at the Kuwait base. It's imperative to accommodate their requests and prioritize housekeeping and cafeteria services. Once you're settled, we'll look into expanding your responsibilities. Starting tomorrow, you'll undergo a 7-day training, followed by on-the-job training for another week. After this period, you'll be prepared to work independently. You'll be leading a diverse team of approximately 150 individuals, and effective stores management will be key, ensuring all items have a minimum stock level. Initially, you'll focus on this area, and I'll later introduce you to engineering and control tower management. I found myself in a new, fast-paced environment, quite different from my relaxed life in Saudi. It was a whirlwind of activity, and I had no choice but to adapt quickly. Richard, who seemed to command great respect, or perhaps fear, among the staff, showed me to the mess hall. There, Australian Defence Force troops greeted him warmly, while the housekeeping staff seemed to either avoid him or act timidly around him. The mess hall was spotless, with an orderly queue for food service. The meal consisted of a hearty chicken curry, accompanied by 3 slices of bread, a serving of okra, and a green salad. The portion was generous, enough for 2 people. When Richard inquired if I enjoyed the meal, I affirmed with a yes. After our meal, Richard led me to a trailer marked as the maintenance store. Upon our arrival, the staff inside stood up, visibly intimidated by Richard's presence. He inquired about my uniform size, and I was promptly provided with 4 pairs of coveralls, a one-piece garment extending from the neck to the legs. Additionally, I received 6 pairs of socks and 2 pairs of safety shoes. The storekeeper was also instructed to issue me 2 monkey masks. Once equipped, Richard drove me back to my quarters, informing me that our shift would commence at 0600 hours. He advised me to complete my breakfast beforehand and be prepared for the shift. I acknowledged with a nod, agreed, and retreated to my barack. Restlessness took over as I lay in bed, my mind wrestling with the decision I had made. As midnight passed, the barack came to life with the arrival of my colleagues, their conversations filled with the day's toils and tribulations. Choosing not to feign sleep, I sat up, greeting the influx of introductions. Among them was someone who resembled a Chinese national, introducing themselves as Dr. Nathan, the head of the pathology department. Others followed, including engineers overseeing the facilities and fellow executives. The room was a mosaic of nationalities: Indians, Chinese, Filipinos, Keralites, Nepalese, and Bangladeshis. The barack buzzed with activity as over a dozen people shared the space, unabashedly preparing for their nightly routines, their modesty left at the door as if in the privacy of their own homes. While the others were getting ready to freshen up, I took the opportunity to introduce myself. Dr. Nathan reassured me, saying, "Don't worry, we are a team here, and we work as one. We'll guide you until you're fully acclimated and confident on the ground." His words brought me a sense of relief and comfort. End of Chapter 6. Subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for more updates on the next chapters. Thank you for listening and subscribing.